Dear Delegate, Dear delegates, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the 66th session of the IAEA General Conference. May I please ask you now to proceed to your seats? We're going to start in a few moments' time. Thank you very much.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate,
السادة المندوبون الموقرون،
distinguished delegates,
أسعد الله صباحكم.
good morning.
أود أن أرحب بكم جميعا
I
في
wish to
الجلسة
welcome
العامة
all of
الأولى
you to the first plenary
لدورة
meeting
المؤتمر العام
of the
العادية
66th regular
السادسة
session
والستين.
of the General Conference.
بموجب المادة 48 من النظام الداخلي أدعو المؤتمر الآن إلى التزام الصمت لمدة دقيقة مكررة للصلاة والتأمل. شكرا لكم.
Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate.
أصحاب المعالي والوزراء ورؤساء الوفود المشاركة، سعادة المدير العام السيد رافائيل غروسي، أصحاب السعادة السفراء والمندوبين الدائمين. أود بداية أن أعرب عن الشكر والتقدير لكافة الدول الأعضاء على الثقة الغالية التي أولتموها إلى دولة الكويت وإلى سلفي السفير صادق معرف لقيادة أعمال الدورة 65 للمؤتمر العام للوكالة الدولية للطاقة الذرية، والشكر موصول لمجموعة الشرق الأوسط وجنوب آسيا على ترشيحها لنا بتوافق ودعم الثمينين. كما أود أن أجدد امتناني لسكرتارية الوكالة على جهودهم التي ساهمت في تسهيل مهمة الرئاسة وفي إنجاح أعمال الدورة الخامسة. سيدات والسادة الحضور، تؤمن دولة الكويت بأهمية العمل متعدد الأطراف وتدعم كل ما من شأنه أن يعزز التعاون والعمل المشترك فيما بيننا ودفعه إلى آفاق أرحب في كافة المحافل الأممية بما في ذلك الوكالة الدولية للطاقة الذرية التي تلعب دور مهم وريادي فيما يتعلق بالعلوم والتطبيقات النووية وتمكين الدول من الاستفادة منها بشكل آمن وفعال في مختلف المجالات. وما اجتماعنا اليوم والحضور عالي المستوى إلا دلالة على أهمية ذلك الدور الذي تؤديه الوكالة في ترجمة مفهوم تسخير الذرة من أجل السلام والتنمية ونقل المعرفة وتعظيم الاستفادة من التطبيقات النووية بكافة صورها، وكذلك الاهتمام بتطوير مفاهيم والمساعدة في ضمان الأمن والأمان النووي وتعزيزهما على كافة الأصعدة وصيانة نظم التحقق وتطبيق الضمانات التي تعتبر جزءاً أساسياً
application of safeguards as an integral part of the non-proliferation regime. Over the past year, the agency, led by the Director General, and with the support and participation of the Member States, has continued to perform its core functions with the utmost competence and effectiveness, thereby helping to achieve our objectives. Here, I must applaud the efforts made by the agency and its staff to ensure business continuity and to support Member States in their response to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, including through the development of innovative new mechanisms for continuing to deliver its work. I must also applaud the achievements such as the new initiatives launched last year, among them New Tech Plastics and Rays of Hope. These initiatives are a welcome addition to the agency's impressive record in placing nuclear technology at the service of humankind. I also commend the agency's continued hosting of and participation in numerous scientific and technical conferences in different fields. In conclusion, once again, we would like to express our thanks to all of you and to the Secretariat. We assure you that we will spare no effort in working with everyone to ensure the success of this conference. We extend our best wishes to the Presidency and to everyone in performing the tasks entrusted to them.
ننتقل الآن إلى البند الأول من أعمالنا انتخاب مسؤولي المؤتمر وتعيين مرشح
I now invite a nomination for the office of the President of the General Conference during its 66th regular session. As all of you know, it is the turn of the Western European Group to provide this year's president. I now give the floor to the distinguished resident representative of Germany in his capacity as co-chair of the Western Europe Group. You may address us from your seat, sir.
Thank you, President. On behalf of the Western European Group, I have the pleasure to inform you that the group wishes to nominate His Excellency Alessandro Cortese, Ambassador of the Republic of Italy, as President of the 66th General Conference of the IAEA. Thank you.
أشكر الممثل المقيم
I
الموطن
thank the distinguished resident representative of Germany for the nomination on behalf of the Western Europe Area Group.
نظرا لعدم وجود ترشيحات أخرى
There being no
أقترح
other nominations,
انتخاب
I propose that His Excellency Mr. Alessandro Cortese, Ambassador and Resident Representative of Italy, be elected by acclamation President of the General Conference during its 66th regular session.
وقد تقرر ذلك.
It is so decided.
وهكذا لقد انتخب سعادة السيد أليساندرو
Excellency Mr. Alessandro Cortese is thus elected President of the conference by acclamation. On behalf of all delegates and on my own behalf, I'd like to offer him our warm congratulations and also our good wishes for a successful conference. I now invite him to take the chair and, in doing so, appeal to delegates in the interest of saving time and in accordance with a decision taken by the conference several years ago and successfully implemented since then, to reserve their congratulatory statements to him until they make their general debate statements.
Good morning to all of us. Excellencies, Mr. Director General, distinguished delegates. At the outset, let me express my gratitude to all of you for electing me and for the trust you have bestowed on me. I feel deeply honored. Special thanks go to the colleagues of the Western European Group and in particular to its co-chairs, the permanent representative of Germany, His Excellency Ambassador Gerd Schmidt-Bremer, and of Liechtenstein, Her Excellency Ambassador Maria Pia Kotbauer, for their support and encouragement. I also wish to convey my deep appreciation to the President of the General Conference at its 65th session, my dear colleague, His Excellency the Ambassador Sadiq Marafi, former Ambassador of Kuwait, for his enlightenment stewardship of the conference last year, as well as to his successor, His Excellency Ambassador Talal Al-Fassam, from whom I just took the chair. I will try my best to fulfill this important task as brilliantly as my predecessor. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we shall not forget that the agency was created with the mission to accelerate and enlarge the contribution of atomic energy to peace, health, and prosperity throughout the world, meaning that nuclear science should be used safely and securely at the peaceful service of all mankind. Having just a look to our agenda, where we touch a lot of very sensitive and important technical and political issues, we can realize that in recent months, unprecedented challenges have emerged and the role of the agency has become even more crucial, arguably one of the most important and delicate in the global multilateral relations. I would also like to stress with relief one good piece of news, if I may say so, that this General Conference takes place in full presence for the first time after more than 2 years of COVID pandemics, during which, despite the difficulties, the agency played an admirable role in facing major threats to nuclear safety and security in different parts of the world, and in implementing projects and activities to cope with the major global health emergency of the last centuries. Having all this in mind, I wish to thank wholeheartedly Director General Grossi and the entire staff of the agency for their commitment, dedication and professionalism in conducting the work, thanks to which the IAEA has been able to continue to carry out its functions today, and again, if I may say so, more essential than ever. The latest example is DG's recent mission to Zaporizhia in a situation of danger and extreme political and logistical difficulty. This is the best demonstration not only of the professionalism, but also of the courage that the agency, its DG and its officials are capable of in the fulfillment of their duties. But in order to do this, let me remind you, they must be assured of the support of the board and of all of us convened here today in this General Conference. Distinguished delegates and dear friends, the work which expects us all at the 66th General Conference implies greater commitment and responsibilities than ever. I think we must all be aware of this. In my capacity as chairman, I feel the moral duty to make an appeal to all of you. Let's make sure that the spirit of the United Nations and of the founding principle of the International Atomic Energy Agency, peace, cooperation, scientific progress, technological advancements, economic and human development, sustainability are alive and kicking in this room. I'm well aware that the so-called Vienna spirit sometimes might seem as it were fading, but I'm convinced that the Vienna spirit will help us in making this General Conference a great success. As I said earlier, we must aim very high to allow the agency to continue contributing to devise concrete solutions to a number of major challenges facing humanity today. Nuclear application can be and must be a real game changer to address all these challenges all over the world. This simple consideration offers also the measure of how important the IAEA is in reaching many of the sustainable development goals of the United Nations. However, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, all these aspirations for the progress of the human condition become unattainable if we lose sight of the fundamental values of peace and cooperation among nations and peoples. I thank you for your kind attention and patience, and I count on your support during this General Conference, which I hope will allow us to accomplish successfully our work over the next few days. Thank you very much. Now I go with my speaking points. So I go ahead. Distinguished delegates, I would now suggest that we continue with the election of officers and the appointment of the General Committee. Under Rules 34 and 40 of the Rules of Procedures, the Conference has to elect for the duration of the present session 8 Vice Presidents, the Chair of the Committee of the Whole, and 5 additional members of the General Committee, resulting in a committee of 15 members, with me as its chairperson. I understand that the area groups have provided their candidates, with the exception of the MESA group for the position of a vice president, or one vice president. I also understand that there are still ongoing consultations in the East Europe group to provide one additional member to the General Committee. I should therefore like to submit for your consideration and approval the following proposal, which I have already received, and I will then address the issue of the pending candidates. As the 7 vice presidents, I should like to propose the delegates of the following member states. I will read the name in the English alphabetical order as I have been informed. Australia, Canada, China, Costa Rica, Ghana, Romania, and Sweden. As for the very important role of chairperson of the Committee of the Whole, I propose Minister Mandelenkosi Lunga Bengu, Minister Plenipotentiary from the Permanent Mission of South Africa, and I want to thank South Africa for their availability to chair this important committee. And as the 4 additional members of the General Committee, the delegates of the following member states, And again, I shall read the names in English alphabetical order as I've been informed. Montenegro, Paraguay, Switzerland, United Arab Emirates. I assume that my proposals are acceptable, and accordingly I take it that the chairperson of the Committee of the Whole and the delegates of the member states whose names I've read already are duly elected as the 7, 8 vice presidents and the 4 of the 5 additional members of the General Committee. It is so decided. Now, with regards to the nomination of one vice president from the Mesa Group, I have been informed by the chair of the group that the group has received one candidature for the position of vice president of the conference. However, the group was not in a position to make an agreed recommendation to this candidature. May I ask the chair of the Mesa Group if he could kindly provide any update on the matter? Mr. Ambassador, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. As you have rightly stated, the group had received one candidature for the position of Vice President of the General Committee. However, despite the unrelenting efforts of the group has not been able to make a positive recommendation on this candidature. Thank you, Mr. President.
I thank the distinguished Ambassador of India for his update, but I want to hear on this point if there are any speakers. Yes, I see the distinguished Ambassador of Yemen. You have the floor, sir.
شكرا السيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President.
يود الجمهورية اليمنية أن تقدم بخالص الشكر للهند رئيسة مجموعة الشرق الأوسط وجنوب آسيا الميسا وأعضاء المجموعة على مساعيهم الحثيثة التي بذلوها لآخر لحظة للوصول إلى توافق. ونؤكد حرصنا الدائم إلى التوصل إلى تفاهمات داخل المجموعة والحفاظ على التوافق في المجموعة. من المؤسف أن هناك دولة واحدة لن تنضم إلى الإجماع.
It is regrettable that one country did not join the unanimity and did not deal with the issue with realism.
في الوقت الذي توافق جميع أعضاء المجموعة. السيد الرئيس.
The members of the group had agreed among themselves. The Republic of Yemen has presented its candidacy to the Mesa Group to be vice president. This was made on the 25th of September 2022. We hope that member states will lend their support to the Republic of Yemen so that we could occupy that post of vice president. We fully support the president of the conference as well in ensuring the success of this conference. Thank you.
I thank you for your statement, for your declaration. I see, even if it's far, I think I see the flag of the delegation of Iran. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you so much. Good morning, distinguished colleagues. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Of course, I will leave the congratulatory statements for my head of the delegation, and then we proceed accordingly. Mr. President, I would like to put on record the position of the Islamic Republic of Iran on the current situation faced the Mesa Group with regard to the issue of the election of officers of the General Committee and some other PMO's positions. Mr. President, the session of the General Conference would have worked smoothly without having any organizational challenges, and Iran continues to fully support the operational principles and practices of regional groupings in the framework of international organizations based on the cooperation and accommodation, spirit and inclusiveness of the participation. The rationale of equitable representation in the AJCs, policy-making bodies to regional group is under serious systematic attack by few members of the group. It is clear that the group of MESA could not come to consensus on this issue and other positions, the available position for the PMOs, on which my delegation will extensively elaborate its position in due time. Iran believes that the representation of the group by member of states in the Bureau is an opportunity to allow the position of the members of the said group to be echoed as appropriate in the deliberation of the PMOs, along with the efforts to facilitate the work and advance the general goals of the relevant bodies. The rationale of equitable geographical representation in the board of directors is that the interests of the position of every group be preserved and represented. Thus, it is unacceptable that a member of the Bureau abuse this stand to pursue a narrow-minded political self-served national agenda. Such an approach will definitely cause disagreement and division within the group. My instruction is to maintain the integrity and tranquility within the group as much as possible and to prevent division within the group by any actor. Despite all efforts by the distinguished ambassador of India, as now echoed, we left no choice but to face. In conclusion, Mr. President, my delegation will continue to avoid confrontation and engage in good faith to allow a smooth conduct of its business in the conference, believes that an unbalanced and discriminatory approach towards nomination of the officers in the Bureau would undoubtedly yield to compromise the constituencies of the IAEA, and that requires an inclusive approach to allow participation of all in the PMOs of the conference. I thank you.
I thank the distinguished ambassador of Iran for his statement, which will be duly included in the official records of the meeting as you rightly requested. But I also, from this brief exchange, understand that the distinguished ambassador of Yemen has submitted his candidature for the position of one vice president of the conference, right now, earlier on. May I take that the conference agrees to elect the candidate I have just mentioned? It is so decided, and I thank you once again for your flexibility. I now, with regards to the additional member of the East European Group, I understand that there are still ongoing consultations within the group, and in order not to delay our work, I would therefore suggest that we proceed with our work as General Committee, and I will inform the conference in due course whenever I receive the update from the Eastern European Group on the outcome of their consultation. I hope, first of all, I wish to really make an appeal to the group and the Slovenian chairmanship of the group to propose some candidates, but I trust that this way of proceeding is agreeable to the conference. Thank you. Now, members of the General Committee, except for one, have been duly elected. All of them will hold office until the close of the conference's current session. On your behalf and on my own behalf, I would like to offer them my warmest congratulations. I look forward to working closely with them with a view to ensuring a successful conference this week. I shall be requiring the Vice Presidents to take the chair from time to time, and I'm already grateful for your availability, and leave me a little of time for other issues, and I hope that they will make themselves available when called to do so. I propose the holding of the first meeting of the General Committee today in the afternoon at 2 p.m. in our, I would say, lunch break, which will be a meeting break. This meeting will take place in boardroom CR6 at the 7th floor of the C building of the VIC. Further, I would seek your concurrence that we deal with the items of the provisional agenda this morning as contained in document JC 66/1 in the following order, pending receipt of the General Committee recommendation on our provisional agenda. I'm just showing the way forward, but the actual adoption of the agenda will be done after General Committee's consultation. Item 3, message from the Secretary General of the United Nations. Item 4, statement by the Director General. Then I propose that we take up item 6, contribution to the Technical Cooperation Fund for 2023, and item 7, general debate and annual report for 2021. Therefore, I propose to suspend Rule 42 of the Rules of Procedure of the General Conference, and this is consistent with past practice. Failure to proceed in this way would considerably delay the start of the general debate, in which several ministers are scheduled to speak today. Therefore, may I take it that the conference accept my proposal to suspend Rule 42 and proceed with the consideration of the items as envisaged in provisional agenda, while the agenda will be adopted at a later stage. It is so decided. So, distinguished delegates, we now proceed with item 3 of the agenda, and on this I have the great pleasure of inviting Ms. Ghada Fatih Weli, Director General of the United Nations Office at Vienna, to deliver a message to the General Conference from the Secretary General of the United Nations. I then give the floor with pleasure to Ms. Weli and invite her to address the conference from the lectern. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Vienna International Center. It's an honor for me to join you and share with you the message of the Secretary General. I'm pleased to send greetings to the General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency. This past year has been marked with grave trials and tests. We face continued challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, the ramifications of the ongoing war in Ukraine, and other crises of global consequences, not least climate change. On all these fronts, the IAEA has made important contributions to helping achieve a safer and more secure world, acting as an expert, impartial and technical interlocuteur. On COVID-19, the IAEA has utilized nuclear and nuclear-driven techniques to provide critical support to member states. Despite increasing restrictions, the agency has worked to verify the nuclear-related commitments under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. By assisting more than 140 countries and territories through its technical cooperation program in areas such as health, nutrition, food, agriculture, and climate change, the IAEA has contributed to efforts to advance the 2030 Agenda and Sustainable Development Goals. And, of course, the IAEA has been at the forefront of the critical task to ensure the safety, security, and safeguarding of nuclear facilities in Ukraine, especially the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I thank Director General Grossi and the IAEA team for their critical work to consult with relevant parties on concrete measures to ensure the safety of the plant and the area surrounding it. I believe that the presence of the IAEA at the plant is a very important deterrent, and I repeat my call for an end to attacks and for the re-establishment of the purely civilian nature of this plant. I look forward to further strengthening our cooperation across the board. I wish you a successful General Conference. Excellencies, distinguished participants, Director General Grossi, on behalf of the UN family in Vienna, allow me to add my appreciation to that of the Secretary General for the IAEA's work for a safer and more secure world. I wish you fruitful discussions and a very successful session. Thank you.
I wish really to thank Her Excellency Ghada Fatih Weli for, first of all, for her presence with us and for delivering such an important message on behalf of the Secretary General. And in turn, on behalf of the General Conference, I really would ask her to convey to the Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Antonio Guterres, our appreciation for his message. Distinguished delegates, we now come to item 4, and I have now the great pleasure in inviting the Director General of the IAEA, Mr. Rafael Mariano Grossi, to make his statement to General Conference. Rafael, you have the floor.
Dear colleagues, good morning. It is a great pleasure to see you again this year. As the President was just reminding us, almost as always, I've been informed that around 2,700 registrations have been received this year, which bring us to more or less the amounts of historical average. I'd like to start by thanking Ghada, our director here in the VIC, for the message you kindly read to us from Secretary General Guterres, with whom, by virtue of the realities that we are facing, I have been interacting quite frequently and intensively, and I thank you for that. Please convey to the Secretary General the recognition of the IAEA. It's also a pleasure to be having this session under the presidency of Ambassador Cortese. Un piacere di vederti, lavorare con te. Grazie. Little did we know, a year ago, when we met for the General Conference, that a year later we would do so under the circumstances that we know. The combination of war again in Europe, the energy crisis that we are living and that was compounded with the climate change and the climate crisis that we already knew and we were fighting against, and the food crisis in a convergence that appears mesmerizing, is in front of us. It is at the same time a source of personal commitment and of yours as well, I am sure, that we know that in many of the things we do here at the IAEA, we have the ability to mitigate, when not to change, some of these enormous challenges we are facing. And of course, we have first at the top of our list and our preoccupations the situation in Ukraine. As the Secretary General has said, this war must stop. But before that happens, we must, and here is where the IAEA comes to play, we must make everything in our power to prevent a nuclear accident that would add tragedy to the suffering. From the beginning of this war, I have been in Ukraine several times, and the missions of the IAEA as well. Recently, as it was reminded to us a minute ago, we were at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. A nuclear power plant, the biggest in Europe, which is under fire. Incredible to believe, but true. In front of this reality, we need to act. If something happens there, we will not have a natural catastrophe to blame for. We will just have our own inaction because we knew what needed to be done. And there is a plan on the table to do it. Last week, I had an opportunity to start consultations with Ukraine and with the Russian Federation on the urgent establishment of a nuclear safety and security protection zone around the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. This is possible. This must be done, and I am ready to continue these consultations in both countries this week so that we can protect this plant. The work there will allow us to stabilize a situation that is simply unacceptable. And I am convinced that it's something that we can do. Of course, when we refer to the issues of Zaporizhzhia and the way in which we can work, I want to pay homage to the mission of the IAEA present there. We have established a permanent presence, something that had never happened before at wartime in a facility, and we are keeping the international community informed and, as the Secretary General rightly said, deterring to the extent we can those who want to do harm there. Our work will continue, and I hope to keep you updated and to bring at least, if not the good, the positive news of some good developments while we establish a protection zone there. This issue is, of course, very closely linked to the climate change and the energy crisis we are undergoing. And we know that by virtue of this convergence, which was not imaginable before, many countries, confirmed users of nuclear energy, but also many others are looking at nuclear energy as a way to ensure their energy needs and also to address another existential crisis that we are facing in the global warming phenomenon that we know. We continue our work in the 32 countries operating the 438 reactors in operation when 57 are being constructed all over the world. And many of you, especially from developing countries, are coming to us saying we also want to benefit from this clean source of energy, in particular in its new manifestations through small and modular reactors. The agency is going to help you. The agency is going to build the capacities that you all need and you deserve, following strictly the letter of Article 4 of the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons that enshrined this principle of unfettered access to the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. The IAEA has, in the past, and will continue, having the rightful place that nuclear energy must have in the global debates on nuclear energy. We did it last year in Glasgow, and we are going to do it this year in Sharm el-Sheikh, where in Egypt, a country that has taken a decision to have a nuclear program is going to be hosting this important conference. And so, from an unexpected participant 2 years ago, a nuclear pavilion will be opened in Sharm el-Sheikh. Times are indeed a-changing. The work on nuclear energy, of course, is important, but equally important is what we do to improve the lives of those in need. And here is where our work on nuclear applications come to the fore. We said that we should do much more to fight the silent killer of non-communicable diseases, and in particular, cancer. In February this year, I went to Addis Ababa, and with the President of the African Union, we launched Rays of Hope, because 70%, 70, of the African population does not have any access to radiotherapy, because in many other parts of the world, in Latin America, where I come from, and in some parts in Asia, people simply die of absolutely preventable and curable forms of cancer. And Rays of Hope is raising hopes. From Benin to Chad, to the Democratic Republic of Congo, to Mali, to Kenya, to Senegal, and many other countries are already working with us, increasing their capacities to fight cancer. Support us. It's not difficult. It's not expensive. We have the technology, we know how to do it, and we do it in close cooperation with WHO. Dr. Tedros Ghebreyesus has been supporting us from day one, and we are in constant contact with the WHO teams to provide a better service. In the same spirit of cooperation, we are working on food security. A few days ago in Rome, I met with my dear friend, DG Chu Dongyu, and the IAEA and the FAO are also joining forces to work on food security. Our incredible laboratories in Seibersdorf are helping us in plant breeding, in food production, and in many other areas that are so required by our member states to face the problems linked not only with the current food crisis, but also in developing drought-resistant crops and other forms of production to face the problems linked with global warming. The environment is suffering, and the IAEA is working through its environmental and marine laboratories on another flagship initiative that has captured the imagination and the will of many around the world, and it is called NUTEC, Nuclear Technologies Against Plastic Pollution, one of the major challenges of our time. And we are going to be working with you in many, many regions of the world on this urgent task that we have ahead of us. Dear colleagues, of course, we are known as the Nuclear Watchdog, and we take this task very seriously. We must prevent nuclear proliferation. We must make sure that this blessing of the nuclear energy for peace and for development is not turned into an instrument of destruction and suffering. We take this job seriously as more and more countries precisely are moving into nuclear energy. We also look into the issues that have been capturing, of course, the headlines, and we know that we have in here issues like the ones that we still need to resolve with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And I welcome the presence of the President of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, with whom I will be meeting later today, because we need to find common solutions for problems that are not going to go away if we don't solve them in a collaborative fashion. Unfortunately, this is not the case with DPRK, where a nuclear program is forging ahead, unfortunately, against the provisions of several United Nations Security Council resolutions. The world of proliferations and safeguards is evolving, and of course, with the advent of projects to benefit from naval nuclear propulsion, the IAEA must also provide the necessary and indispensable technical answers to this issue, which is foreseen in the existing legal framework. Ladies and gentlemen, this work, as you see, is vast. We are faced with an enormous number of problems, but we know that when we work here at the IAEA, we have the enormous privilege of doing something about them. I look forward to this great yearly gathering, to listen from you, to hear from you, but above all, to get the support that, as you have heard me now say, it is even more indispensable. I thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. And I really, after the applause, which was well deserved, I want to thank the Director General for his statement. He not only dealt with specific agenda items for this session, but also provided us with an interesting overview and some food of thought, if I can say so, on the main issues and challenges ahead for the agency. And I'm also sure that his views will receive careful consideration by member states, also in the perspective on our consideration in the next few days. Distinguished delegates, let us now move to item 6 of the agenda. But with your permission, I should now like to say a few words about the contributions to the Technical Cooperation Fund. The Board of Governors on 6 June 2022 recommended a figure of 92,600,000 euros as the target for voluntary contribution to the Technical Cooperation Fund for the year 2023, for next year. Document GC 66/15 before you has attached to it a table showing the contribution which each member state would need to make in order to meet its share of the target. The early pledging and payment of contribution to the Technical Cooperation Fund greatly helped the Secretariat in planning the agency's Technical Cooperation Program, and I would therefore urge all delegations that are in the position to do so and have not done so as yet to notify the Secretariat during the current session of the contributions that the governments will be making to the TC Fund for 2023. I am pleased to note that already 32 member states have made their pledges to the TC Fund for 2023. For your information, at the end of our session, under a related agenda item, I will report on the contribution, which have been pledged up to that time, the time I will make the report, and I hope that I will be in a position to report favorably on the percentage of the 2023 target figure already pledged. Pledges can be made during meetings at the table to my right, marked with the description financial contributions. Between meetings, they can be made in room number MOE 67 on the ground floor of this building, where delegates can also make inquiries concerning the regular budget contributions. Distinguished delegates, let us now turn to item 7 of the agenda, which is the general debate and the annual report for 2021. Before giving the floor to the first speaker on my list, I would like to make a few comments and suggestions regarding the conduct of the general debate, which is expected to continue during the next few days. Member states were provided the option of submitting pre-recorded video statements to be delivered in the general debate. And member states are requested as well to limit the respective statements delivered in the general debate to 7 minutes, also to allow us to finish our work before the weekend, next weekend. Longer statements, of course, may be posted on the General Conference webpage. Therefore, I really invite member states who have statements which are longer than the 7 minutes to deposit their statement and limit themselves to a shorter one. In this connection, I would also appeal for your cooperation, allowing me to start our meetings punctually every day, and ask you to be available to deliver your statements when called upon to do so. Delays in starting our meetings will reduce the number of speakers we can accommodate in each session. Lastly, I appeal for your understanding and cooperation in the arrangements of the daily speakers list and the order of speakers. The list, I remind you, was opened in June. However, adjustments may be required in order to meet contingencies. I'm confident that the Secretariat will do its best to cope with conflicting demands and will be consulting individual delegations when finalizing the list of speakers for each day. I take it that the conference is in agreement with the suggestion which I have made with regard to the handling of the speakers list for the general debate. I don't see any comments, is therefore so agreed, and I thank you for your cooperation. Now, we start with the moment many of you were waiting for, certainly with me as the chair. So I now have to open the list of speakers. I have the great pleasure in inviting the first speaker in the general debate. In this case is Mr. Mohammed Eslami, Vice President and Head of the Atomic Energy Organization of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Sir, you have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, Mr. President, Director General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. President, at the outset, I would like to congratulate you on your assumption of the presidency of this conference. I would also like to assure you of my delegation's support and cooperation. The development plans of the Islamic Republic of Iran are aimed at ensuring a sustained progress along with promotion of justice to achieve sustainable development. In this regard, the comprehensive strategic document of the nuclear industry for Vision 2040 has been approved at the national level and has been placed on the agenda of the work of the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. According to this document, the share of nuclear electricity in the energy basket of the country should increase up to a minimum 20% of the country's total electricity, and in this respect, a plan has been foreseen for creating a new capacity of 10,000 megawatts of nuclear electricity for the next 10 years. The document also addresses production, development and application of radioisotopes, vast utilization of radiation in health, agriculture, environment and industry. In this regard, the Islamic Republic of Iran welcomes the initiative of the Rays of Hope, which is the main theme of the Scientific Forum for 2022. The agency to achieve the global goal to zero carbon emission by 2050 shoulders a special responsibility. Fortunately, the Director General of the agency has highlighted the importance of this issue in various international fora, including the 26th Conference of the Parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, held in Glasgow, as well as during the 10th NPT Review Conference held recently in the city of New York. Mr. President, I would like to take this opportunity to make some clarification on the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action as a deal. The JCPOA is an outcome of a collective effort which consists of a delicate balance of reciprocal commitments and responsibilities, during which Iran limits its nuclear enrichment activities, reduces its capacity, slows its momentum, and accepts a robust verification system for a specified period of time. And in return, the illegal, cruel sanctions and the relevant obstacles on the way of Iran's international economic, commercial, and financial cooperation and interactions should be removed by the other side. Furthermore, the JCPOA, amongst others, amongst others, as a confidence-building tool, shall prevent baseless allegations against peaceful nuclear program of Iran. The United States, against the will of the international community, violated the provisions of the nuclear deal and the UN Security Council Resolution 2231, withdrew from the deal and resorted to infamous maximum pressure policy, which was confessed to have been failed and useless. However, after 2.5 years of continuing proliferation of economic sanctions against different sectors of Iran's economy by the United States and lack of practical remedies by E3/EU in action, Iran's parliament enacted a bill entitled A Strategic Action Plan to Remove Sanctions and Protect the Interests of the Iranian Nation, which determined inter alia certain actions for the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. As it has been stated on various occasions, the Islamic Republic of Iran still adheres to the 2015 nuclear agreement. Iran's remedial measures have been taken in response to the violation of the obligations of the other side. If the other parties to the deal return to their obligations by removing all obstacles as well as sanctions, the continuation of Iran's remedial measures would be seized pending legal permission from the relevant authorities, including the parliament. Mr. President, the Islamic Republic of Iran, as a responsible member of the IAEA, has always rendered its support to the full and non-discriminatory implementation of the Non-Nuclear Proliferation Treaty and its comprehensive safeguards agreement. Iran has an exemplary record of cooperation with the agency in this regard. I would like to clarify here, Mr. President, that there are no undeclared nuclear materials and activities in Iran. All allegations are merely based on false and fabricated information provided by the occupying Israeli regime. The Islamic Republic of Iran truly expects the agency to provide its reports on verification activities in a more professional, impartial, and independent manner. Mr. President, distinguished participant, it is highly expected that the agency preserves its integrity and credibility, not to allow certain elements to raise under different guises old allegations which were already closed in 2015. Once again, I would like to reiterate that these old delegations were closed in 2015. The case has been terminated, but they have been retrieved under various excuses. We believe that the agency must refrain from relying on baseless, false information taken from unreliable resources. In this way, the agency shall maintain its independence, impartiality, and professionalism, and play a constructive role, and this could be reversed only when sanctions against the Iranian nations are lifted, and we are always ready to cooperate with the agency. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the Vice President of the Islamic Republic of Iran for his statement. And I now have the pleasure to give the floor to the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands, Mr. Wopke Hoekstra, who has forwarded us his speech on video.
Ladies and gentlemen, in today's unstable and grim reality, international cooperation is more important than ever. The work of the International Atomic Energy Agency is absolutely essential. Over the past months, one name has been on everyone's mind: Zaporizhzhia. The incidents at this nuclear power plant in Ukraine continue to pose a great danger to workers as well as to anyone living near the plant. Director General Grossi, I would like to commend you and your team for your boldness and determination in protecting their safety as well as ours. You have achieved an important diplomatic feat in ensuring inspections could take place at the power plant. And by doing so, you have shown the value not only of your own work, but of the agreements we have made together. The values of the rules-based order. And despite severe conflict, the work of the agency continues. Inspections underpinned by our common interests. Inspections that form the basis of our safety and security. And it is paramount that the 7 indispensable pillars of nuclear safety and security are upheld. They represent the most fundamental of the basic rules that should be followed in order to ensure the safe and secure operation of nuclear facilities. They're easy to understand and don't require a full read-through of the agency's safety standards and nuclear security series. Ladies and gentlemen, in the unstable reality we all live in, we must be able to rely on existing commitments to non-proliferation and nuclear disarmament. And in that respect, we must continue to strengthen the nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime. We all know that the non-proliferation treaty is fundamental to international peace and security. It represents our shared determination to prevent nuclear conflict and work towards global zero. But like any other commitment, it requires a collaborative effort to ensure it remains relevant. In light of this, the Netherlands has endeavored to play a constructive role as one of the co-chairs of the NPT Review Conference. We regret Russia's blocking of this final document, preventing us from reaching a consensus. But I also note that 190 countries were ready to compromise and strike a deal. We should use that positive momentum to keep moving forward in making our world a safer place. In the unstable reality we live in, we also need safeguards. Because without safeguards, there wouldn't be a non-proliferation regime. Hence, we call on all member states who have not yet done so to sign and ratify a comprehensive safeguards agreement and an additional protocol. We support the agency's state-level approach, ensuring a safeguard system that is fit for purpose. And in respect of new commitments with regard to non-proliferation, a renewed nuclear agreement with Iran is and remains of the utmost importance. We're all aware of the importance and positive impact of nuclear technology. Technology that can help cure, feed and protect people. Technology that can improve our lives and the world we live in, on condition that it is safe and secure, and that it doesn't contribute to nuclear proliferation. It is the agency that helps us on all of these counts. And as the use of nuclear technology grows, so does the amount of nuclear material worldwide. We must ensure that this material is used responsibly, and that the agency has the means and tools to apply its safeguards and carry out its safety and security tasks. Ladies and gentlemen, we need boldness and we need determination to protect our safety and security. Boldness and determination as shown by Mr. Grossi and his team. Boldness and determination that we must show today. I wish you a very fruitful conference. Thank you very much.
I thank the Deputy Prime Ministers and Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands for his statement, and now I wish to give the floor to the acting Chairman, State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate of Ukraine, Mr. Oleg Korykov. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, let me congratulate you on your election as a president of the 66th session of the IAEA General Conference. The Ukrainian delegation wishes you good luck and is ready for constructive work under your leadership. I would like to express my country's gratitude to Director General Mr. Raffaele Mariano Grossi, who has shown outstanding leadership during this difficult year. Mr. President, for the first time in the history of mankind, a country using nuclear energy for peaceful purposes operating 15 nuclear power plants units faced a military seizure and occupation of nuclear facilities, the largest in Europe, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and the exclusion zone with the confinement located over Chernobyl unit number 4, where the largest man-made accident in the history occurred. The Russian Federation is a state that seized by military means and occupied peaceful nuclear facilities in Ukraine. The Russian Federation is a nuclear state. Russian Federation is a permanent member of the United Nations Security Council. Russian Federation is a nuclear terrorist state that in 2022 carried out an unprovoked, full-scale invasion of an independent state and occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The Russian Federation is the only state in the world that shells facilities at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant site in the immediate vicinity of the 6 nuclear reactors and spent nuclear fuel storage facility with heavy weapons. The Russian Federation is a country that shells Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant satellite city Energodar with civilians, including the NPP personnel families, shells of other Ukrainian cities from the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant site. The Russian Federation is a state that terrorizes and tortures nuclear power plant employees. Nuclear power plant personnel is working under tremendous psychological pressure. Russia is a state that launches cruise missiles over nuclear power plant sites, ignoring the non-fly zone around nuclear power plants. Heavy weapons and ammunition of the Russian Federation are located directly in the turbine hall of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant first and second units. I can go on listing the acts of Russian nuclear terrorism at Ukrainian nuclear facilities, including shelling the neutron source installation in Kharkiv a long time, However, I want to appeal to the world community and IAEA. Because of Russia's actions, the whole world is now on the brink of a nuclear disaster, whose consequences will be global, and it is still impossible to predict them. The spread of an emergency release in the event of such a disaster, depending on the direction of the air mass transfer, may enter the territory of other countries. Therefore, dear President, dear colleagues, I ask you not to be indifferent and not to expect that the consequences of the possible nuclear accident will bypass your countries, and use all your levels of influence to stop the country occupying the nuclear power plant in its terrorist activities. I want to personally thank IAEA Director General Rafael Grossi for organizing and leading missions to Chernobyl nuclear power plant and Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The reports developed upon the missions results became indisputable evidence of the crimes of the Russian army in the occupied territories, and became their documentary confirmation for the world community. However, the report on the results of the mission to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant has not yet brought us closer to solving the main issue: cessation of shelling nuclear facilities, demilitarization, and deoccupation of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. The total withdrawal of the Russian occupation troops and representatives of Rosatom from the territory of Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant should be the main task and goal of the mission. Ukraine highly appreciates the adoption of Resolution GOV 2022-58 on the 15th of September 2022, entitled "The Safety, Security and Safeguards Implication in the Situation in Ukraine" by the IAEA Board of Governors. Ukraine strongly supports the call to Russia to immediately stop all actions against the related to Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and any other nuclear facilities in Ukraine in order to re-establish full control over nuclear facilities by Ukrainian competent body within the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine, including the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, for their safe and secure operation, as well as for the full and safe implementation by the agency of its activities in accordance with the agreement between Ukraine and IAEA for the implementation of safeguards in connection with the Non-Proliferation Treaty and Agency Statute. And after the adoption of the resolution on 19th of September, 20 minutes after the midnight, Russia attacked another nuclear power plant of Ukraine, Pivdенно-Ukrainska plant, with a cruise missile. The missile fell 300 meters from the nuclear reactors. Mr. President, allow me on behalf of Ukraine to thank the partner countries that have already provided and will provide equipment for Ukrainian organization in the near future within the framework of response and assistance network of IAEA. The equipment is needed for restoring the capabilities of organizations that suffered from occupation by Russian troops and will be used to overcome the negative consequences for nuclear and radiation safety caused by nuclear actions in the territory of Ukraine. We highly appreciate the IAEA efforts and coordinating role in this process. In addition, I would like to thank IAEA for the international technical assistance that is planned to be provided to Ukraine in the near future. Let me emphasize that my country remains fully committed to its obligations under the Non-Proliferation Treaty in general, and in particular under the Agreement of Comprehensive Safeguards and Additional Protocol to the agreement, even in the wartime. And finally, if we do not stop Russia now, we will further remain hostages of the nuclear terrorist country, and nobody knows what nuclear power plant in what country is going to be the next target. Thank you for your attention. Thank you.
I thank the acting chairman of the State Nuclear Regulatory Inspectorate of Ukraine. And now it's my pleasure to invite the distinguished President of the State Office for Nuclear Safety of the Czech Republic, Ms. Dana Drabova, who will speak on behalf of the European Union. You have the floor, Madam.
Mr. President, I have the honor to speak on behalf of European Union. The following countries align themselves with the statement: North Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, Ukraine, the Republic of Moldova, Georgia, and Iceland. Let me congratulate you, Mr. President, on your election and thank the IAEA Director General and the Secretariat for their excellent work over the past year. The European Union attaches great importance to the IAEA's technical, independent and impartial work across its mandate. We are meeting in unprecedented circumstances. The European Union condemns in the strongest possible terms the Russian Federation unprovoked and unjustified aggression against Ukraine, which is a gross violation of international law, notably the UN Charter, and severely undermines European and global security and stability. Russia's actions pose serious and direct threats to nuclear safety and security, and the agency's safeguards verification activities in Ukraine, as highlighted in the board resolution adopted in March and September. We are deeply concerned that each of the 7 indispensable pillars outlined by the IAEA Director General has been compromised as a result of the Russian aggression. As stated by the Director General, a nuclear accident must not be added to the tragedy of this war. The EU strongly supports the agency's work to assist Ukraine, notably the IAEA support and assistance mission to Zaporizhia, and the agency continued presence at the facility. We also support the Director General proposal to establish a nuclear safety and security protection zone around Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, the modalities of which would need still to be agreed. We emphasize there is only one sustainable solution. The Russian Federation must stop its illegal war on aggression against Ukraine, unconditionally withdraw all its armed forces and military equipment from the entire territory of Ukraine, notably from the Zaporizhia power plant, and fully respect Ukraine's territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence within its internationally recognized borders. The EU reaffirms its resolute commitment and continued support for the full and effective implementation of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The EU is increasingly concerned at Iran's continued actions inconsistent with the JCPOA and with severe and the case of R&D activities, irreversible proliferation implications. Some of these actions do not have any plausible civilian justification. The EU strongly urges Iran to return without delay to full JCPOA implementation, including all transparency measures. The EU supports the intensive diplomatic efforts within the JCPOA Joint Commission and contacts of the EU High Representative as JCPOA coordinator with all relevant partners to achieve a return to the JCPOA by the United States and the resumption of full implementation of all JCPOA commitments by the United States and Iran. The EU member states regret that Iran has chosen not to seize the full diplomatic opportunity and call on Iran to accept it so that the JCPOA will be fully restored. We wish to underscore that the JCPOA negotiation is separate from Iran's legally binding obligations under the NPT, which are essential to the global non-proliferation regime. The EU urges Iran to cooperate in full with the IAEA without any further delay or conditionality to resolve all pending safeguard issues in accordance with legally binding obligations under the NPT Comprehensive Safeguards Agreement. The EU condemns DPRK's continued engagement in nuclear and ballistic missile activities, which are a matter of grave concern. It is highly regrettable that the DPRK has not taken concrete, verified action towards denuclearization of Korean Peninsula. We urge the DPRK to comply with obligations under multiple UN Security Council resolutions to refrain from nuclear tests and ballistic missile launches and to engage in a meaningful dialogue with all relevant parties to build a basis for sustainable peace and security. We also urge the DPRK to return to negotiations and take immediate and concrete steps towards abandoning all nuclear weapons, ballistic missiles, and related programs in a complete, verifiable, and irreversible manner. Mr. President, the EU regrets that the 10th Review Conference of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty could not achieve consensus on final outcome document because of the Russian Federation blocking consensus. We will spare no effort to continue promoting the full and effective implementation of the NPT as well as its universalization, and we will build upon the substantial discussions held tirelessly over the course of the 10th Review Conference to prepare for the new review cycle. The NPT remains the cornerstone of the global nuclear non-proliferation regime, the essential foundation for the pursuit of nuclear disarmament in accordance with Article 6 of the NPT, and an important element in the development of nuclear energy applications for peaceful purposes in accordance with Article 4 of the NPT. Its legally binding obligations and past commitments remain valid. The EU reaffirms its full support for the establishment of a zone free of nuclear and all other weapons of mass destruction and their delivery systems in the Middle East, as agreed at the 1995 NPT Review Conference. The EU also affirms its full support for the decision to establish a working group to strengthen the review cycle. The EU supports the strengthening of the IAEA safeguard system and reminds of the view that comprehensive safeguards agreements, together with the additional protocol, constitute the current verification standard under the NPT. We call for their universalization without delay. The EU also urges all states which have not yet done so to amend their small quantities protocol and apply the comprehensive safeguards agreement in full, especially those states that are already building a nuclear power plant or research reactor. The EU and its member states attach utmost importance to nuclear safety and its continuous improvement. Over the past decades, we have established and further developed an advanced, legally binding nuclear safety framework applicable in all EU member states. We also provide financial and human resources to help improve nuclear safety in countries outside the EU, including through the European Instrument for International Nuclear Safety with a budget of 300 million euros. Furthermore, the EU stresses the need to continue strengthening nuclear security worldwide in order to prevent nuclear terrorism and facilitate peaceful uses of nuclear technology. We encourage all member states to promote a strong nuclear safety and security culture and continuously implement the highest possible nuclear safety and radiation protection standards. We recognize the IAEA's central role in facilitating international cooperation and providing technical assistance to member states. We reaffirm our strong political commitment to International Nuclear Safety and Security Convention, support their implementation, and call upon all states to join them. We stress the need to consider new legally binding international rules, specifically prohibiting armed attacks against any nuclear installations devoted to peaceful purposes. Mr. President, the EU and its member states reaffirm their long-standing commitment to and strong support for the IAEA Technical Cooperation Program and support the agency work in the peaceful uses of nuclear technology in order to reach the Sustainable Development Goals and the Paris Agreement commitments, including in the context of COP27. We acknowledge that member states pursue different approaches to ensure energy security at affordable cost, and that all countries will have the sovereign right to decide whether or not to include nuclear power as part of their own energy mix to collectively achieve the 2030 climate target and the Paris Agreement's commitments. The EU acknowledges the role played by nuclear technologies in relation to global efforts to limit climate change and mitigate its negative effects. The EU also welcomes the new Race of Hope initiative and the organization of this year's scientific forum on this topic. We welcome the strong commitment to gender equality and encourage the Secretariat to continue its efforts to achieve gender parity and mainstream gender in its programs and projects. The EU is proud to be the largest donor to the IAEA's Marie Sklodowska-Curie Fellowship Program. We remain among the IAEA largest donors and expect efficient and effective program delivery. Given the importance of the IAEA's work, we hope the member states will do their utmost to ensure sustainable funding for the IAEA key activities. Thank you, Mr. President.
Now, I thank the President of the State Office for Nuclear Safety of the Czech Republic, who spoke on behalf of the European Union. And for me, it's now a great pleasure to invite the Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Austria to take Mr. Alexander Schellenberg, of course, everybody knows him, to take the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, Director General, dear Raphael, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. As a proud host country, it is a real pleasure to welcome you all in Vienna, and a particularly warm welcome to the delegations of St. Kitts and Nevis and Tonga, who are here with us for the first time since I joined the agency, since the last meeting. Dear colleagues, we all know that since our last conference we have witnessed monumental shifts in Europe. War has returned to this continent with the unprovoked aggression by a nuclear-armed state against a sovereign neighbor. This, and we are all aware of it, this is a war in Europe, but it is not a European war. Its shockwaves are felt all around the globe. A fact that became again very clear last week during the General Assembly of the United Nations. Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine has been accompanied by explicit nuclear blackmail and the occupation of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest in Europe, by Russian forces. These actions show an alarming degree of irresponsibility, and these actions risk catastrophic consequences for all of us. And I would like to take this opportunity to salute your leadership, dear Raphael, and salute the determination and expertise of your whole team at the agency. In fact, you and your team, you are insurance. You are our ears and our eyes on the ground, and you give us at least some sense of security in these troubling times. Austria stands fully behind you and the work, and we are proud to have the agency here. And I have to say, it's as simple as that. You're doing, and your guys are doing, a tremendous job. Thank you for that. I believe this calls for an applause. And we also fully support the establishment of a safety zone around the Zaporizhzhia power plant. This is the responsible, it is the logical thing to do. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past month, Vienna has hosted the Iran nuclear talks, and we are grateful for the EU's untiring efforts to enable all sides to return to the full participation in and compliance with the JCPOA. This is crucial if we want to avoid a nuclear arms race in the region with disastrous consequences for security and stability. And it is therefore all the more disappointing that there's still no agreement. The window of opportunity is almost closed. And meanwhile, Iran is increasing its stockpile of highly enriched uranium, which obviously serve no civilian purpose. And in terms of safeguard, I call on Iran to fully cooperate with the agency and to provide the necessary informations. Ladies and gentlemen, the developments of recent months have shaken the entire nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation regime to the core. Nuclear risks have never been this high for decades. And yet the mechanisms we put into place to deal with this, they're simply not working. The NPT review conference was a failure. And not just because Russia decided to block consensus on the final document. No. We must be clear-eyed that the whole process is a disappointment because of the unwillingness of nuclear states to go forward on nuclear disarmament. Because many still believe in the logic of nuclear deterrence, a logic I fundamentally disagree with. Because deterrence requires credibility, and credibility means actually the readiness to actually use nuclear weapons. This is nothing less than a massive sword of Damocles hanging over all our heads. This downward spiral must serve as a wake-up call to all of us. The nuclear status quo is simply not sustainable. We need a new momentum, a paradigm shift. And I believe there is one. There is the TPNW, the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And I'm proud that the first meeting of the states parties in June in Vienna delivered concrete results, a strong condemnation of all nuclear threats, and an ambitious program to implement the treaty. And yes, I know that not everybody in this room agrees, but Austria and the Austrian government will not tire to convince other states to join the treaty and to see the positive transformational power it has for all our security and stability. Mr. President, next to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation, we are faced with an urgent task to diversify and decarbonize our energy sources. We all suffer from high energy prices and Russia's cynical use of energy as a weapon. Our citizens rightly look to us for answers. But I underline, and it won't be a surprise to you, I underline once again that for Austria, nuclear fission is simply not a sustainable and safe way to generate electricity, nor to fight climate change. We should rather invest in renewable energy technologies that are simple and quick to implement, that are easy to maintain, and that don't have the safety, security, and proliferation risks of nuclear power. Ladies and gentlemen, the challenges before us are indeed far-reaching. Yet I am convinced that we have the tools in our hands to face them. If we use the agency and its independent expertise in the way we are actually meant to, and if we respect the spirit and the letter of the NPT. Thank you very much.
I thank the Federal Minister for European and International Affairs of Austria for his wise words, and I invite the Director General of the State Atomic Energy Corporation of the Russian Federation, Mr. Alexei Likachev. You have the floor, sir.
Большое спасибо.
Thank you very much.
Уважаемый господин председатель,
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Ваше превосходительство, генеральный директор, дамы и господа. В последние полгода вся система международного сотрудничества в ядерной энергетике столкнулась с беспрецедентными вызовами. Кроме того, небывалого уровня достигла политизация деятельности целого ряда международных организаций. Нередко звучат несправедливые, порой циничные и абсурдные обвинения в адрес Российской Федерации, далеко выходящие за рамки уставной деятельности этих организаций. Подчеркну, что в этой тяжелой ситуации МАГАТЭ выдерживает испытания на прочность и остается в рамках своего профессионального мандата, несмотря на попытки ряда государств-членов превратить агентство в площадку для продвижения политических позиций. Важно, чтобы МАГАТЭ и в дальнейшем сохраняла этот профессиональный подход и неполитизированный подход. Считаю необходимым озвучить принципиальную позицию Российской Федерации. Обеспечение ядерной безопасности и физической защиты ядерных объектов и установок – абсолютный приоритет, где бы эти объекты ни находились. Мы всячески поддерживаем усилия МАГАТЭ по обеспечению ядерной безопасности и физической защиты объектов Украины. Неукоснительно соблюдаем и руководствуемся 7 принципами ядерной безопасности, сформулированными руководителем агентства. В этой связи, с учетом заявлений, прозвучавших в том числе и сегодня в этом зале, не вступая в полемику, хочу сказать, в рамках системы Организации Объединенных Наций каждый имеет право на свое мнение. Но никто не должен иметь права на свои собственные факты. А факты состоят в следующем. Первое. Вооруженные силы Украины обстреливают Запорожскую атомную электростанцию с использованием беспилотников, тяжелой артиллерии и ракетных систем залпового огня. Украинские диверсионные группы подрывают опоры линии электропередач Курской АЭС на территории России. Это прямая угроза ядерной безопасности. Второе. Никаких российских войск и тяжелых вооружений на территории Запорожской АЭС нет. Есть подразделения Росгвардии, выполняющие охранные функции, и есть автомобили радиационной, химической и биологической защиты. Без них просто невозможно сегодня говорить об обеспечении ядерной безопасности АЭС в обстановке непрекращающихся украинских ударов. Кроме того, на площадке находится несколько специалистов Росатома, которые не вмешиваются в оперативное управление станцией. Их главная и единственная задача – консультационная и организационная помощь руководству ЗАЭС в обеспечении ее безопасности в это непростое время. И третье, наверное, самое главное. С самого начала Россия поддерживала усилия МАГАТЭ и его гендиректора по организации миссии агентства на Запорожскую АЭС. Мы сделали все возможное, чтобы визит экспертов на станцию состоялся еще в июне, но тогда поездка сорвалась не по нашей вине. Мы активно содействовали организации миссии на Запорожскую АЭС в конце августа, в начале сентября. Я подчеркиваю личное мужество участников международной миссии и генерального директора Рафаэля Мариано Гросси. Мы приветствуем присутствие на площадке Запорожской АЭС двух сотрудников агентства на постоянной основе. Это решение помогает развеять многочисленные спекуляции относительно обстановки на Запорожской атомной станции. Мы находимся с коллегами в рабочем контакте, обеспечиваем их безопасность, а также надлежащие условия работы и быта. Естественно, в содержательную работу их не вмешиваемся. Мы готовы к взаимодействию по техническим аспектам зоны защиты ядерной и физической ядерной безопасности Запорожской АЭС. Мы готовы договариваться о ее создании максимально быстро. Уважаемые коллеги, дамы и господа, несмотря на драматические обстоятельства, наше сотрудничество с МАГАТЭ по основным уставным направлениям не остановилось. Мы финансируем крупные проекты агентства по линии программы технического сотрудничества, Фонда физической ядерной безопасности, Российской программы поддержки гарантий, программы действий по лечению рака и ИНПРО. Российские эксперты участвуют в мероприятиях МАГАТЭ и вносят содержательный вклад в деятельность агентства. В деятельности МАГАТЭ все большее место занимает климатическая повестка. Мы приветствуем эту работу. Мы системно участвуем в этом работе и будем всячески поддерживать и подчеркивать лидерство МАГАТЭ. Известно, что чаще всего в качестве аргумента против атомной энергетики используется тезис о якобы нерешимости проблем обращения с отработавшим ядерным топливом и радиоактивными отходами. Наш ответ на этот простой и реализуемый – это замыкание ядерного топливного цикла. Такой же подход мы предлагаем и своим международным партнерам. Дамы и господа, скажу несколько слов об основных событиях в атомной отрасли в России и в нашем международном сотрудничестве. Несмотря на беспрецедентное санкционное давление, мы исполняем все взятые на себя обязательства в рамках заключенных договорных отношений. Ни одна стройка Росатома не остановилась. В апреле текущего года указом президента Российской Федерации продлен до 30 года срок реализации национального проекта развития техники, технологий и научных исследований в области атомной энергии. Приоритеты остаются неизменными. Разработка технологий обращения с АЯТ, замкнутый топливный цикл, АЭС малой и средней мощности. Развитию малой атомной энергетики мы придаем особое значение. В Якутии сооружаем наземную атомную электростанцию с реакторными установками типа РИТМ-200 мощностью 55 мегаватт. На Чукотке работает единственная в мире плавучая атомная электростанция с реакторами малой мощности. Будут развернуты еще 4 модернизированных энергоблока. С удовлетворением констатируем, что МАГАТЭ активно встраивает технологии малых модульных реакторов в существующие нормы и правила агентства, в том числе в рамках созданной по инициативе гендиректора агентства неформального института Венской группы. Уважаемые коллеги, дамы и господа, господин председатель, ваше председательство, господин генеральный директор, хочу закончить свое выступление словами из приветствия президента Российской Федерации Владимира Владимировича Путина участникам 10-й конференции по рассмотрению действий договора о нераспространении распространения ядерного оружия. Все страны, соблюдающие требования ДНЯО, должны иметь право доступа к мирному атому без каких-либо дополнительных условий. Готовы делиться с партнером своим опытом в сфере атомной энергетики. Российская Федерация сделает для этого все необходимые усилия. Спасибо большое за внимание.
I thank the Director General of the State Atomic Energy Corporation of the Russian Federation for his statement. And now I'm pleased to give the floor, actually I would say to give the screen to the chairman of the Japan Atomic Energy Commission Cabinet Office, Mr. Mitsuru Uesaka, who is speaking to us from Tokyo.
President, Director General, distinguished delegates, Japan highly commends the agency's work in promoting the peaceful uses of nuclear energy and non-proliferation. Japan is committed to contributing to global peace and prosperity and supports the leadership of Director General Grossi. At the 10th NPT Review Conference last month, Kishida Fumio, Prime Minister of Japan, announced the Hiroshima Action Plan for a world without nuclear weapons and reiterated Japan's commitment to nuclear non-proliferation and peaceful uses of nuclear energy. It is deeply regrettable that the final document was not adopted by consensus due to the objection by Russia. However, Japan will continue to work with the agency to maintain and strengthen the international non-proliferation regime and to facilitate the benefits of the peaceful uses of nuclear energy underpinned by the NPT. Japan is gravely concerned about the situation of nuclear facilities in Ukraine, Russia's military activities near or at nuclear power plants, and other facilities in Ukraine. Let alone Russia's unjustifiable and unprovoked aggression against Ukraine cannot be tolerated. Japan condemns Russia's action in the strongest terms. Japan commends and supports the continuous efforts of the agency to secure nuclear safety and security in Ukraine based on the 7 indispensable pillars of nuclear safety and security, which include the agency's assistance to Ukraine and its mission to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In this regard, Japan pledged €2 million to support the agency's effort. Japan underlined the need of restore without delay the safety and security of Ukraine's nuclear facilities and materials. President, the peaceful uses of nuclear energy play an important role of prosperity. Unlocking the immense potential of nuclear energy enables us to address a wide array of global challenges, such as climate change and energy security, and to implement SDGs. This year, Japan has contributed €1 million through the peaceful uses of initiative to the Rays of Hope, the latest initiative launched by Director General this February. Japan places top priority on safety, taking into account the lessons learned from TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station accident, and will continue to work together with the agency to ensure the peaceful uses of nuclear energy in a sustainable manner. Japan has been steadily advancing the decommissioning of TEPCO's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station and environmental restoration activities off-site, with the cooperation of the agency, which has unique mandate and expertise to this end. Regarding the handling of the Alps-treated water, the agency, with the involvement of international experts, has been conducting reviews on the safety and regulatory aspects of the Alps treated water, as well as monitoring. Japan highly appreciates the professional work of the agency, which has been carried out in an independent, objective, and transparent manner. In close cooperation with the international community, including the agency, Japan will continue to advance its effort in a transparent and scientific manner in accordance with domestic and international safety standards. President, IAEA safeguards are the fundamental instrument for ensuring global nuclear non-proliferation. Japan strongly supports the agency's efforts to make them more effective and efficient. Japan also strongly supports the universalization of the CSA and AP. The international community should continue to work together to resolve regional non-proliferation issues. First and foremost, North Korea's nuclear and missile programs pose a serious challenge to the international non-proliferation regime and were totally unacceptable. Japan strongly urges North Korea to take concrete steps towards the complete, verifiable, and irreversible dismantlement of all weapons of mass destruction, ballistic missiles of all ranges, and related programs. In this regard, I wish to emphasize the critical importance for all states to fully implement relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions, and to note that the denuclearization of North Korea requires a robust verification where the agency should play an important role. With regard to Iran's nuclear-related activities, Japan supports the JCPOA to uphold the international non-proliferation regime. Japan will proactively contribute to efforts toward achieving the return to compliance with the JCPOA by all relevant countries. Gender parity expands the horizon in the field of peaceful uses of nuclear energy and non-proliferation. Japan welcomes the continued effort by the agency to achieve gender parity, including through the IAEA Marie Curie Fellowship Initiative. Japan is a proud contributor to the initiative since its launch. In closing, I would like to reiterate Japan's firm determination to continue to provide its maximum support for the agency. Thank you.
I thank the Minister Minister of State for Science and Technology of Japan, Ms. Takaichi Sanae, and of course for a statement, of course, apologize with her and with the Japanese delegation if I was given a wrong name at the beginning. I now have the pleasure to give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary, Mr. Péter Szijjártó. Thank you, Mr. Minister. You have the floor.
Hello. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, Director General, thank you so much for adding me to the list of the speakers here. And as we are meeting here in Vienna, the European Union is moving towards a recession and has already been in a very serious crisis of energy supply. European energy market as such doesn't exist currently. Prices are skyrocketing as the east to west supply chains are being interrupted. This situation, though, increases the significance of nuclear energy big time. We have to make it very clear, it's a fact, without nuclear energy, there is no safety of energy supply in Europe. And without nuclear energy, there is no affordable energy in Europe. The capacities in nuclear energy decrease our dependency on the totally unpredictable changes of the energy environment That's why we can say that the capacities on nuclear energy equal our sovereignty. Hungary has a more than 40-year-long very positive experience with using nuclear energy. We do consider this way of generating energy as being cheap, safe and sustainable, without which it would be absolutely impossible to meet our green goals. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues, you know that the European Union has introduced sanctions because of the war, but the first package has made it very clear that the peaceful use of nuclear energy does not fall under sanction regime. Unfortunately, regardless of that, some entities in the European Union are trying to overperform in this regard, and they are continuously making attempts to put hurdles and obstacles in a way of nuclear investments. I want to make it very clear here that we do consider all actions carried out by institutes in Brussels, by national export authorities or by banks operational in Europe to hurdle and put obstacles on the way of the construction of our nuclear power plant as attacks against our sovereignty. Because we do consider the issue of safety of energy supply as an issue of sovereignty. And we in Hungary have decided to build a new nuclear power plant in order to ensure the safety of our energy supply, basically to protect our sovereignty. The two new reactors will definitely satisfy the most serious expectations and regulations when it comes to security. We are the neighbors of Austria, so we have to make sure in this regard. It's an international project led by Rosatom, but companies from the United States, France and Germany are among the subcontractors as well. It's good news that the new nuclear power plant has received the final establishment permit. According to our expectations, the first concrete will be set in ground by autumn next year, and the new nuclear power plant should be operational from 2030. By the way, with this investment, we will avoid the emission of 17 million tons of CO2 on an annual basis. And I want to underline here that we do have the right to build this nuclear power plant. We do have the right because the composition of the national energy mix is a national competence. And once again, I want to underline that there are no sanctions in Europe against nuclear energy. That's why putting obstacles or hurdles on the way of nuclear investments is a violation of the European regulations. And because of the fact that there is a crisis of energy supply here in Europe, we have decided back in Hungary to submit a request to the European Union to prolong the lifetime of the currently running nuclear reactors of ours. And we do expect the EU institutions to carry out a fair and fact-based procedure without any kind of ideological or political approach. Dear colleagues, you might know that the European Union is planning to put together another sanction package, and I would like to inform you that there's a red line for Hungary in this regard. We will never support, as we have never supported, any sanctions which would have endangered our safe energy supply. We never supported and will never support any sanction which would endanger our nuclear investment, be it in a direct or in an indirect way. That's why we will not support any kind of sanctions regarding the engineering, construction or IT services. And believe me, this standpoint does not have any kind of Russian and any kind of Ukrainian aspect. We don't care what they think about this position of ours. We only care about one thing, which is our national interest. And our national interest is that we should be able to guarantee the safe supply of energy for Hungary. That's why we do our best to complete the construction of our nuclear power plant as quickly as possible. in order to put it as a part of our national energy mix and to switch it on our grid. Dear colleagues, we count on the support of the IAEA in these endeavors of ours. We count on IAEA to make sure that there is a level playing field being ensured in the future for nuclear energy in Europe. And we count on IAEA to go against any kind of negative discrimination which would be set out against nuclear energy in the political discourse of Europe. We don't want any kind of unnecessary political or ideological debates to endanger our nuclear investment. Dear Director General, I'd like to express the support of Hungary to your activities. Thank you for all the brave efforts you have made so far in order to ensure nuclear safety and security globally, especially under very challenging circumstances currently. Mr. President, good luck with presiding over this meeting. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Trade of Hungary for his words, and I'm now pleased to invite the Secretary of Energy of the United States of America, Ms. Jennifer Granholm, to the floor. You have the floor, sir. Madam.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is an honor to join this group of esteemed diplomats today, and I'd like to begin with a message from the President of the United States, Joe Biden. This year's General Conference arrives at a defining moment in history. We face existential climate crisis, we face fast-paced technological innovation, and we face Russia's brutal and unnecessary invasion of Ukraine. We can tackle these challenges by building on the work done at the 10th Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference and working with the IAEA to promote non-proliferation, safety, and security standards as we advance peaceful applications of the atom. My administration is dedicated to reestablishing U.S. leadership in nuclear energy as we tackle the climate crisis. We seek to establish the additional protocol as a universal standard for nuclear supply arrangements, while also limiting the spread of sensitive enrichment and reprocessing technologies. That's why we're working closely with the IAEA to ensure that the AUKUS partnership among Australia, the United Kingdom, and the United States meets the highest non-proliferation standard. Strengthening nuclear and radioactive material security is one of my administration's highest priorities, and I look forward to working with the IAEA to continue our collective efforts to counter weapons of mass destruction, thwart terrorism, and improve nuclear and radioactive material security practices. The United States is committed to working with partners worldwide to secure these materials and further reduce the threats of nuclear and radiological terrorism. President Biden continues. Our efforts to promote responsible nuclear stewardship stand in stark contrast to Russia's recent reckless and irresponsible words and actions. After weeks of good faith negotiations from the international community, Russia blocked consensus on a final document at the NPT review conference. Russia's seizure of Ukrainian nuclear facilities casts doubt upon Moscow's commitment to the peaceful uses of nuclear energy and undermines its credibility as a nuclear energy supplier. And the Kremlin has repeatedly made overt nuclear threats against Europe. My administration reaffirms our support for Director General Grossi's 7 pillars of nuclear safety and security, and we call on Russia to immediately withdraw its troops from Ukraine and cease military activity at and near Ukraine's nuclear facilities. I am grateful for the professionalism and dedication of Ukrainian operators at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and for their efforts to ensure that the plant remains safe under difficult circumstances. The President's message concludes by saying, in this time of great upheaval, we must provide unequivocal support through our words and resources for the international non-proliferation regime and for the IAEA's indispensable role in addressing global challenges. The Biden-Harris administration believes that our collective climate security and energy security will grow alongside innovation and expansion in civil nuclear power. Nuclear offers our best source of carbon-free baseload power today. It is safe, it's clean, it is reliable, and advances in nuclear technology will help us increase global energy capacity to meet rising electricity needs without unabated fossil fuels, clearing a pathway to a net zero world. And for those countries held hostage by Russian fossil fuels right now, nuclear power, freed of Russian supply chains, is part of the solution to sever that dependence. And that is why President Biden's agenda invests billions of dollars in the U.S. Department of Energy to ramp up the development and demonstration of next-generation reactors. We look forward to showcasing our efforts for all of you at the IAEA's 5th International Ministerial Conference on Nuclear Power next month in Washington, D.C. And of course, as we encourage an expansion of civil nuclear power, the United States will also uphold the highest standards of safety, security, and non-proliferation. In that spirit, I'll close by reiterating our unwavering support for the government and the people of Ukraine and our commitment to the safety and security of Ukraine's nuclear facilities amid Russia's barbaric invasion. I wish all of the delegations well as we work to strengthen the role of the IAEA, preserve our shared values, and prepare for a new generation of peaceful applications of nuclear science and technology. Thank you, Mr. President.
I warmly thank the Secretary of Energy of the United States of America for her words and for sharing with us the message from President Biden. I now have the pleasure to invite the Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia, His Royal Highness Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman Al Saud. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Ambassador Alessandro Cortese, President of the General Conference, Mr. Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Excellencies, Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. At the outset, I wish to thank the State of Kuwait for having chaired the 65th regular session of the General Conference and for its efforts in making that General Conference a success. I wish to congratulate Mr. Alessandro Cortese for chairing the session at the current General Conference, wishing you all success. It is a pleasure to be among you, attending this important forum which reflects the role of the IAEA in bolstering international cooperation towards harnessing the atom for peace and development. Excellency, I convey to you the appreciation of the leadership of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for the agency's outstanding efforts led by its Director General in promoting the agency's role in harnessing nuclear technology and finding solutions to global challenges to provide a safe environment free from nuclear threats. I wish to thank the Director General for launching several pivotal initiatives related to nuclear technology and regulatory aspects in member states. Your Excellency the President, as an extension of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's continuing support for the agency's efforts and distinguished initiatives, and based on the absolute belief that peaceful cooperation between countries is one of the key measures towards achieving prosperity and stability in the world, the Kingdom has contributed $2.5 million towards the agency's initiative to modernize its laboratories and to contribute towards strengthening nuclear and radiological regulatory capabilities, in addition to the provision of raw material to member states of the agency, thus guaranteeing the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. In addition, the Kingdom has contributed $1 million in support of the agency's zoonotic disease integrated action project to help prevent the outbreak of infectious zoonotic diseases and enhance preparedness and responsiveness to these diseases. Your Excellency, the Kingdom's national policy for atomic energy emphasizes the importance of the development of peaceful uses of nuclear technology with the highest standards of transparency and reliability and the highest levels of safety in accordance with the Kingdom's international obligations. Within our National Atomic Energy Project, we are working in cooperation and coordination with the agency to develop and implement our national plans to facilitate the contribution of nuclear energy to the national energy mix and thus meet national development requirements. Thus, we are collaborating with the agency in working to build programs to develop national human capabilities, which has led to the rapid growth of national capabilities, thus fulfilling the highest international standards in this domain. We benefit greatly from the agency services. This includes the very important role played by the agency in developing the capabilities of our member states in response to nuclear emergencies, through conducting international exercises. The Kingdom has participated indeed in some of those exercises and benefited greatly thereof. Excellency, upon the conclusion of the 10th Review Conference of the NPT, the Kingdom emphasizes the importance of concerted international efforts to implement the provisions of the treaty and achieve its universality. This should be done through avoiding politicization of non-proliferation issues and through preserving the rights of member states to benefit from peaceful nuclear technology and the natural resources in accordance with the relevant international treaties and agreements. We underscore and commend the role of the DG in continuing to preserve the agency's neutrality in dealing with non-proliferation issues and the agency's responsibilities when it comes to safeguards agreements, especially with regards to monitoring Iran's nuclear program. We also stress the importance of supporting the agency and its DG to resolve all Iran's outstanding issues and fulfill until it fulfills and demonstrates a complete compliance with its safeguards agreement. This will allow to put an end to Iranian nuclear activity in the region, which threatens peace and stability. And we wish to equally highlight that beyond the region, this activity threatens peace and stability around the world, and the role of the Board of Governors in preserving the non-proliferation regime. Mr. President, I conclude by stressing that the Kingdom renews its support to the agency to harness nuclear technology for humanity. And we call on the international community to cooperate actively in developing and firmly addressing all attempts of non-peaceful and unsafe uses of the nuclear technology. Thank you, Your Excellency, and I wish you all success. May the peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
I thank the Minister of Energy of Saudi Arabia, but I also wish to thank Your Highness for your kind words and wishes. I now invite the distinguished Minister of Climate and Environment of Poland, Ms. Anna Moskwa, to make her statement. You have the floor, Madam.
Mr. President, Mr. Director General, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, apologies for my family name, but I'm fully Polish. I congratulate His Excellency Ambassador Alessandro Cortese on his election to this honorable function of President of the 66th session of the General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency. I assure you of Poland's full support and cooperation. Excellencies, if it was a normal conference, general conference, I would tell you what a Polish plan to develop nuclear power plants. And I would tell you that by 2033, first reactor will start its operations, and that by 2043, 6 reactors will provide up to 15% of all our energy demand. If it was a normal conference, I would tell you how important is the agency's technical cooperation and program. But it's not a normal conference. When we are sitting here and discussing, there are 6 reactor power plants, the biggest in Europe, in Zaporizhzhia in Ukraine, which is occupied by Putin, by Russian troops, and by Rosatom officials. They invaded Ukraine and they invaded the plant. The Director General and his staff visited the site. There is no doubt, and the report from the mission clearly indicates that all 7 pillars for ensuring nuclear safety and security during the Russian invasion have been and still are severely violated. Russian artillery is shelling the Zaporizhzhia facilities. Chernobyl nuclear analytical laboratories were looted. South Ukraine nuclear power plant was shelled and is still at the highest danger. Zaporizhzhia Ukrainian personnel working on a plant is being terrorized. The plants and all nuclear facilities must be fully and immediately demilitarized and derussified. Derussified means no Russian troops, no Rosatom officials, no Russian citizens in any nuclear power plants in Zaporizhzhia. Zaporizhzhia plant must be fully operational and 100% connected to Ukrainian system. Any Russian attempt to steal energy from Ukraine must be strongly condemned. International Atomic Energy Agency is a very strong organization. Together we are strong and stronger than each of us individually. Let's come together and force Russian Federation to leave all Ukrainian nuclear power plants and facilities immediately. If they don't follow the law, let's suspend them. If this step doesn't work, let's exclude them from this reputable organization. The agency is about safety and security of nuclear technologies. This organization is about freedom and solidarity. It's our great exam now. The test of credibility. History will judge us. It's time to act. As it's written here, atoms for peace and development. Let's prove that it's not only a slogan and empty slogan, but it really works. Thank you very much for your attention.
I thank the Minister of Climate and Environment of Poland, and now I invite the distinguished Minister of Hydrocarbons and Energy of Bolivia, plurinational state, to intervene with a video is Mr. Franklin Molina Ortiz.
Señor Presidente, Embajador Alejandro
Mr. President,
Cortese,
Ambassador Alessandro
Embajador
Cortese,
Ambassador
Rafael Mariano Grossi,
distinguidos delegados,
distinguished
señoras y
delegates,
señores presentes,
ladies and gentlemen,
en nombre del Estado
on
Plurinacional de
behalf
Bolivia,
of the
me
plurinational
complace
state of Bolivia,
dirigirme
I am
a tan
pleased to
distinguida
address
audiencia
such a distinguished
para compartir
audience
con ustedes
and
los
to share with you
importantes
the
avances
important progress
alcanzados en
that has been
materia
achieved
de las aplicaciones
concerning
de la tecnología
applications
nuclear
of
en
nuclear
nuestro país.
technology in our country.
El Estado Plurinacional de Bolivia reconoce el
The
papel
plurinational
fundamental
state of
del
Bolivia
organismo en la
recognizes the
promoción
vital role
del uso
of the
pacífico
agency
y
in
seguro
promoting the
de la
peaceful and
tecnología
safe
nuclear a
use
nivel
of
global,
nuclear technology
contribuyendo a
globally,
alcanzar los
thereby
objetivos de
contributing
desarrollo
to the
sustentables,
achievement of the Sustainable
identificando
Development
y
Goals,
contribuyendo también plenamente con la visión de
We
átomos
fully
para la
identify
paz
with
y
the
el
agency's
desarrollo,
vision of atoms for
rol que debe
peace and
continuar
development,
consolidándose
and the
continuamente a
agency's role
través
must
de
continue
la
to be strengthened
participación
through
activa
the
de
active
los Estados
participation
miembros.
of member states.
Asimismo, tenemos presente el
In addition,
importante aporte
we
del
are
sistema de
cognizant of the
salvaguardas
important contribution
administrado por el
that the
organismo
safeguard
para
system
no
administered by the
proliferación
agency
de armas
makes
nucleares,
to ensuring the
objetivo con el que el
non-proliferation of
Estado
nuclear
boliviano está
weapons.
profundamente
Bolivia
comprometido,
is deeply committed
habiendo
to this
ratificado el
objective,
Tratado sobre
having
la
ratified the
proliferación
Treaty
de las
on the
armas
Prohibition
nucleares
of Nuclear Weapons.
como un claro ejemplo
This
de la
is a clear
responsabilidad
example
que asume
of the
el Estado
responsibility
boliviano
that
en esta
Bolivia
materia.
assumes in this
Nuestro
sphere.
país viene implementando el programa nuclear
Our
boliviano
country is
que
implementing
responde a
the
un
Bolivian
diálogo
nuclear
continuo
program,
entre los
which is the
diferentes
fruit
sectores de
of
nuestro
continuous
país
dialogue
como un
among the different
instrumento
sectors of our
y
country.
mecanismo mediante
This
el
program
cual
is an
se
instrument and
promueve el
mechanism
uso
through which
pacífico
the peaceful
nuclear
use of nuclear
tanto en los
energy
ámbitos de las
is
aplicaciones
promoted with
energéticas
regard to both
como
energy-related
tecnológicas para lo que
applications
nosotros
and
hemos
technological
denominado el
applications
vivir
to
bien.
achieve what we
A
call
través del
living
programa
well.
nuclear boliviano se
Through
tiene
the Bolivian nuclear
implementado
program,
un centro de
a
investigación y
center
desarrollo en
for
tecnología
research
nuclear
and
que
development
está
in nuclear
conformado por un
technology
complejo
is
ciclotrón
being operationalized.
radiofarmacia
It is
preclínica, un
composed
complejo
of a cyclotron
multipropósito de
radiopharmacy
irradiación y un
preclinical
reactor
complex,
nuclear
a
de
multipurpose
investigación que estará
irradiation
ubicado a
complex,
4.000
and a nuclear
metros de
research
altura sobre
reactor.
el nivel del mar,
It will be located
siendo
4,000 meters
único en
above
su
sea
tipo.
level,
De
making
igual
it
manera,
unique.
se está construyendo una red
In the
de
same
centros
vein,
de
a
medicina nuclear
network
y
of nuclear
radiofarmacia,
medicine and
conformada
radiotherapy
por 3
centers is
centros de
being
última
constructed.
tecnología
It
para la atención
comprises 3
de pacientes
centers
con
which
cáncer.
use cutting-edge technology
En
to
esta
care for
gestión,
cancer
con el
patients.
liderazgo y empuje de nuestro presidente
In
del
this
Estado
regard,
Plurinacional de
thanks to
Bolivia,
the
Luis Arce
leadership and
Catacora,
impetus
2
provided by
de
the President of
3
Bolivia,
centros
Luis
ya
Arce
iniciaron su
Catacora, 2
funcionamiento
of these
y en
3
las próximas
centers are
semanas también
already
se iniciará
functioning.
con la
In the coming
operación de
weeks,
complejos de ciclotrón
the
radiofarma
cyclotron
e
radiopharmacy
irradiación,
preclinical
instalaciones
and
que
irradiation
contribuirán
complexes will
al
begin
desarrollo de
operating.
nuestro país
These
y al
facilities will
fomento de la
contribute to the
investigación
development of our country
científica y
and will
tecnológica
foster
en beneficio
scientific
de todos
and
los
technological
bolivianos.
research for the
A
benefit
fin
of
de
all
asegurar las
Bolivians.
condiciones
In
institucionales
order to
y
ensure
legislativas
that
adecuadas
the
para la
appropriate institutional
implementación
and
y
legislative
funcionamiento de estas
conditions for
instalaciones,
the
se
implementation and
estableció
functioning
un
of these
nuevo
facilities
órgano
are in place,
regulador
a new
independiente,
independent
fortaleciendo las
regulatory body has been established. The creation of this body strengthens our national capacities to oversee and control this technology. In addition, the law on the peaceful application of nuclear technology has been enacted. Furthermore, we have signed various international conventions and agreements. In this, we engaged in coordinated work with the agency, which provided support on a continuous basis throughout this process. We hope to continue this fruitful relationship. Lastly, Mr. President, Bolivia reiterates its commitment to continue taking the steps that will facilitate the fulfillment of international agreements with respect to the safe operation of nuclear facilities. We also reiterate our commitment to continue contributing to the promotion of activities related to nuclear safety in our facilities. President, it's our hope that this conference will be a resounding success and conducted in a peaceful spirit. Thank you.
I thank the Minister of Hydrocarbons and Energy of Bolivia Plurinational State, and for me as a Roman, meaning from Rome, Catholic, it's a particular pleasure to invite Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, Secretary for Relations with States and International Organization of the Holy See, to take the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, I have the great honor of conveying to you and to all the distinguished participants at this 66th General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency the best wishes and cordial greetings of His Holiness Pope Francis. On behalf of the Holy See, I congratulate you, Ambassador Alessandro Cortese, and the members of the board on your election by this conference. I also express our gratitude to Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi and to the Secretariat for their dedicated work for the benefit of the whole IAEA family. We particularly appreciate the Director General's tireless efforts to help secure the safety and security of nuclear facilities in Ukraine and prevent what Pope Francis recently called a nuclear disaster. The Holy See also congratulates St. Kitts and Nevis as well as Tonga on becoming members of the IAEA. Mr. President, amid the dreadful conflicts and unrest which we witness in many parts of the world, and in face of the continuing escalation of the war in Ukraine, with words and actions that risk to leave less space for diplomatic solutions, we must never abandon the search for dialogue. Let us pursue it with firm and unshakable determination and without restrictions. Dialogue can nourish critical, rational, and objective thinking. It helps us to counter false beliefs and prejudices. It is a process that allows us to consolidate the foundations of human coexistence, to identify and promote the common good in knowledge and full respect of differences. The Holy See appeals to all nations to foster, through collective and joint commitment, a culture of care which places human life and dignity at the centre. At this moment of great uncertainty, when the world seems to be at a crossroads and the threat with the use of nuclear weapons has come back to haunt us, the Holy See appeals to all nations to silence all weapons and eliminate the causes of conflicts through tireless recourse to dialogue and negotiation. As Pope Francis warned us earlier this year, those who wage war forget humanity. The Holy See has no doubt that a world free from nuclear weapons is both necessary and possible. This common goal was underlined by Pope Francis when he emphasized that nuclear weapons exist in the service of a mentality of fear that affects not only the parties in conflict, but the entire human race. International relations cannot be held captive to military force, mutual intimidation, and the parading of stockpiles of arms. Weapons of mass destruction, particularly nuclear weapons, create nothing but a false sense of security. They cannot constitute the basis for peaceful coexistence between members of the human family, which must rather be inspired by an ethics of solidarity. End of quotation. The Holy See signed and ratified the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons with the aim of moving beyond nuclear deterrence to a world entirely free of nuclear weapons, affirming that nuclear weapons are arms of mass and environmental destruction. In the face of the very slow progress being made on the disarmament agenda, especially on nuclear disarmament, we might be tempted to lose hope. However, we must not be deterred by setbacks. We must press ahead with perseverance and determination in our common efforts to achieve the elimination of nuclear weapons. We must make every effort to avoid dismantling the international architecture of arms control, especially in the field of weapons of mass destruction. The world needs to find a way to prevent unleashing the destructive power of nuclear weapons while enabling all people to share in the great benefits of the peaceful uses of nuclear technology in health care, food production, and many other areas. Mr. President, the Holy See recognizes the important contribution of the IAEA in helping to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons. Comprehensive safeguards agreements between the IAEA and nearly 180 countries, many of which are also implementing additional protocols, help to provide assurance that these countries are not working on clandestine nuclear weapon programs. This builds confidence and trust, while also serving the broader goal of nuclear non-proliferation. It also helps create a foundation for international cooperation in peaceful nuclear technology and for sharing its benefits with developing countries. The Holy See supports the IAEA's work to verify and monitor compliance with nuclear-related commitments under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA. We also welcome the continued and patient efforts of the international community to revive negotiations concerning the nuclear program of the DPRK, which threatens the integrity of the non-proliferation regime. There can be no military solution to these issues. IAEA safeguards are essential contribution to promoting peace and security and help to build a climate of confidence in place of mutual recriminations. The unique IAEA safeguards system constitutes an important tool in moving towards the goal of nuclear weapons-free world. Mr. President, the climate change emergencies and COVID pandemic have had not only environmental but also ethical, social, economic and political consequences. They cause great suffering to the poorest and most vulnerable of our fellow human beings. The Holy See favours a model of development and sustainability based on fraternity and the alliance between the human being and the environment. The IAEA, by helping developing countries to use nuclear technology to treat cancer, grow more food, and manage scarce water supplies, plays a unique role in promoting integral development, enhancing our stewardship of God's creation. The Holy See also welcomes the IAEA's support to countries in using nuclear science and technology to monitor environmental pollution. The IAEA's expert assistance in helping the world to adapt to new climate realities, including food and water shortages and ecosystem losses. The Holy See particularly appreciates the agency's work to enable low and middle-income countries to develop comprehensive cancer control strategies and ensure that in time all patients will have access to radiotherapy and nuclear medicine. Mr. President, in conclusion, the Holy See reiterates its sincere gratitude and affirms its unwavering support for the IAEA's many contributions to nuclear non-proliferation and disarmament, as well as to the safe, secure and peaceful use of nuclear technology. Thank you.
I wish to thank Archbishop Gallagher for his wise words and also for having reminded us of some wise and important words from Pope Francis. I now wish to invite the Minister of Science and Technological Development of Montenegro, Ms. Biljana Šepanović, to deliver her speech. You have the floor, Madam.
Everything is ready.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the very beginning, allow me to join previous speakers in congratulating you, Mr. President, on your appointment as the President of the 66th General Conference of the IAEA. Let me assure you of the full support of our delegation to you during this week's proceedings and beyond. Montenegro fully aligns itself with the statement delivered by the EU. I would like to nonetheless address you in my national capacity and highlight some issues of particular importance to my country. Mr. President, in the substantially compromised global security regime fueled by the unjustified and unprovoked act of aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine, the role and the importance of the agency is an impartial, independent and objective actor is more important than ever. The situation at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant is of great concern to us. We call on Russia to implement without delay the March and September resolutions of the Board of Governors and to immediately cease all actions against and at NPP Zaporizhzhia. Montenegro fully supports the work of the agency in assisting Ukraine to ensure nuclear safety and security and to maintain the agency's safeguards on all nuclear materials and activities in all nuclear facilities within the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine. We support the IAEA assistance mission to Zaporizhzhia and the initiative of the Director General to establish a nuclear safety and security protection zone around the NPP. With unprecedented and rising number of nuclear-related crises we are facing today, allow me to commend the leadership of the Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi and the dedicated and tireless efforts of the Secretariat of the agency in maintaining international peace and security. Mr. President, Montenegro is a non-nuclear state, but we are a vigorous supporter of peaceful use of nuclear energy and furthering the application of nuclear science and technology. The agency engagement in this domain and the assistance offered to its member states has been of paramount significance. The human mission of the agency in service of the progress of all mankind was clearly demonstrated in the rapid response of the agency to the COVID-19 pandemics and well reflected in projects such as Zodiac and NUTEC, as well as in the new The Race of Hope initiative. As a proud member of the Friends of Renewal Plus and Renewal 2 projects, Montenegro strongly supports these and other endeavors of the agency and it is firmly committed to giving its utmost contribution to their successful implementation. Montenegro substantially benefited from the fruitful and ongoing cooperation with the agency through comprehensive and wide-ranging technical assistance programs included in the fields of nuclear safety and security, human and animal health, biotechnology, water research and environmental protection of the Adriatic Sea. I am proud that we will extend and further our cooperation this week with the signing of the new country program framework for cooperation between Montenegro and the agency for the period 2022-2027. I would also like to thank the Secretariat of the IAEA for its support for the regional project of the establishment of the International Institute for Sustainable Technologies in Southeast Europe and especially the capacity building assistance we have received. This project, which bears huge benefits for our region in terms of help and support to the people with malignant diseases, is in fact one of the best examples of the promotion of collaboration between science, technology and industry in the spirit Science for Peace and Development. Distinguished colleagues, Montenegro is devotedly committed to the fortifying full implementation and universalization of the multilateral regime for disarmament and non-proliferation, and to that extent the promotion of the universalization and full implementation of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, Montenegro continues to be a responsible and reliable partner in efforts to achieve sustainable peace and security, and guided by that postulate, we actively participated in the 10th Review Conference of the NPT, representing the very foundation of the global non-proliferation regime. In the deteriorating global security environment, we believe it is of paramount importance to reaffirm international norms related to the non-proliferation of nuclear weapons, considering the potentially catastrophic consequences of nuclear incidents. Allow me to remind that Montenegro is a state party to all major agency conventions and other relevant international instruments, striving to meet the highest standards when it comes to nuclear safety and security. Additionally, we have also invested significant efforts in the domain of protection against harmful effects of ionizing radiation and radioactive waste management. We are constantly working on upgrading our capacities in this area, determined to prevent any illegal use or mismanagement of radioactive materials and related knowledge and technologies. Mr. President, I would like to close my statement by reaffirming the resolute dedication of the government of Montenegro to continue to actively contribute to the agency work as well as to implementation of the outcome results of this conference. Thank you very much.
I thank the Minister of Science and Technological Development of Montenegro for her statement. And now, distinguished delegates, we being close to 1 o'clock and it is almost lunchtime. I have only one speaker on my list for this morning, and my last speaker is, and I'm very pleased of it, the Administrator General of the Alternative Energies and Atomic Energy Commission of France, Monsieur François Jacques. Monsieur Jacques, vous avez la parole.
You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Recevez tout d'abord les félicitations de ma délégation pour votre élection à la présidence de cette 66e conférence générale. La délégation française s'associe pleinement à la déclaration prononcée au nom de l'Union européenne et souhaite ajouter quelques considérations à titre national. Je tiens d'abord à féliciter le directeur général Raphaël Grossi et le secrétariat pour avoir assuré la continuité de l'ensemble des activités de l'agence malgré les multiples crises auxquelles cette dernière est confrontée et qu'il l'engage au cœur de son mandat afin de promouvoir et de garantir l'utilisation sûre, sécurisée et pacifique des technologies nucléaires. Le fait marquant de cette conférence générale est qu'une guerre se déroule depuis plus de 7 mois au cœur de l'Europe. Outre les dégâts humains et matériels considérables déjà occasionnés, cette guerre a des conséquences multiples sur les États frontaliers, l'Europe et la communauté internationale dans son ensemble. Ces tensions fragilisent encore davantage l'ensemble des économies déjà très éprouvées par la crise sanitaire. Ma délégation réitère sa condamnation la plus ferme de l'agression non provoquée et injustifiée de la Fédération de Russie contre l'Ukraine. L'invasion d'un pays souverain par la Fédération constitue une violation du droit international, y compris de la Charte des Nations Unies, et porte gravement atteinte à la sécurité et à la stabilité européenne et internationale. La France est gravement préoccupée par le fait que la Fédération de Russie ne se conforme pas à la résolution adoptée par le Conseil des gouverneurs début septembre et continue de ne pas respecter les 7 piliers indispensables de la sûreté et de la sécurité nucléaire exprimés par le directeur général de l'agence et issus des normes de sûreté et de sécurité. Les actions russes constituent des menaces graves et directes pour la sûreté et la sécurité des installations nucléaires ukrainiennes et empêchent l'agence et les autorités ukrainiennes légitimes de mettre en œuvre les activités de vérification au titre de l'accord de garantie généralisée de l'Ukraine, et ce dans des conditions sûres. La France appelle la Fédération de Russie à cesser son agression, à retirer sans condition toutes ses forces armées et son équipement militaire de l'ensemble
protect forces and military equipment from all of Ukraine's territory and to fully respect the territorial integrity, sovereignty and independence of Ukraine within its internationally recognized borders. France hails and fully supports the work of the agency and its Director General seeking to assist Ukraine to guarantee nuclear safety and security and to ensure the implementation of safeguards in Ukraine in the context of a military conflict that is ongoing. France stands resolutely on the side of the agency and the Ukrainian government. We have contributed to the coordinated assistance plan of the agency. With regard to the NPT review conference, after 7 years of consultations, my delegation deeply regrets the fact that the NPT review conference was not able to result in a consensus-based final document. One state bears the responsibility for that, Russia. France respects and will continue to respect fully its obligations under the NPT, which is a pillar of the disarmament and nuclear non-proliferation regimes.
De rappeler de ce traité l'autorité et la primauté. Au titre de la lutte contre la prolifération, je souhaite souligner que la France, en étroite coordination avec le Royaume-Uni et l'Allemagne et avec les États-Unis, est engagée depuis plus d'un an et demi dans des discussions de retour au respect du JCPOA. Le document auquel le coordinateur a abouti début août constitue le meilleur point d'aboutissement possible. Il constitue une opportunité d'arrêter une escalade dangereuse. Malheureusement, l'Iran a choisi de ne pas mettre à profit cette opportunité diplomatique décisive. En lieu et place, il a continué de développer son programme bien au-delà de toute justification civile plausible. La position de l'Iran sur l'enquête ouverte par la IEA sur la présence de matières non déclarées en Iran est incompatible avec ses obligations internationales juridiquement contraignantes. En introduisant cette question dans le contexte des négociations de retour au JCPOA, l'Iran met en péril les perspectives de rétablir cet accord. La France soutient de manière déterminée le directeur général de l'IEA pour la mise en œuvre des garanties en Iran. Nous attendons de l'Iran qu'il revienne rapidement à l'application de son protocole additionnel et des mesures de vérification prévues. Le réchauffement climatique, mais également les tensions du secteur de l'énergie ont confirmé le virage indispensable que les États doivent engager vers une transition énergétique durable et vers la sécurité de leurs approvisionnements. La France poursuit une politique énergétique et climatique au service de la sécurité d'approvisionnement et de ses objectifs ambitieux en matière environnementale et climatique. Avec l'objectif premier d'atteindre la neutralité carbone à l'horizon 2050, l'indépendance et la souveraineté énergétique constituent une priorité pour la France, enjeu majeur dont la situation actuelle en Ukraine et ses conséquences révèlent l'acuité. La France considère l'énergie nucléaire comme une technologie clé pour l'atteinte de ses objectifs. En effet, cette technologie est non seulement l'une des sources d'énergie les plus décarbonées tout au long de son cycle de vie, mais elle constitue également un moyen de production stable et pilotable permettant une gestion fiable du réseau et une sécurité d'approvisionnement élevée. Le président de la République française a ainsi annoncé le lancement d'un nouveau programme de construction de 6 réacteurs nucléaires de type EPR2 en complément de la poursuite du développement massif de sources d'énergie renouvelables. L'innovation dans le domaine du nucléaire est également un facteur clé pour pérenniser la filière industrielle. La France l'accompagne fortement avec un financement public d'1 milliard destiné aux réacteurs innovants, notamment les petits réacteurs dont le projet français Neward, pour lequel la construction d'une tête de série est prévue à l'horizon 2030, constitue un élément important. Dans ce contexte, la France encourage l'agence à poursuivre ses activités relatives à la sûreté des réacteurs innovants, notamment en évaluant l'applicabilité des normes de sûreté de la IEA à ces technologies. La France soutient et contribuera à la conférence internationale sur les questions d'actualité en matière de sûreté des installations qui se tiendra à Vienne en octobre prochain. Dans sa démarche de promotion de la sûreté et de la sécurité nucléaire, la France encourage l'agence dans ses actions visant à l'universalisation des instruments juridiques internationaux. La France salue en particulier le succès de la conférence d'examen des parties à l'amendement à la Convention sur la protection physique des matières nucléaires en mars dernier. En conclusion, ma délégation encourage vivement l'agence à poursuivre ses travaux pour le développement d'une énergie nucléaire répondant aux meilleurs standards de sûreté et de sécurité et à promouvoir ses atouts dans tous les forums internationaux. Mon pays se tient également à disposition pour faire bénéficier de son expertise les États qui ont fait le choix de l'énergie nucléaire
guarantees to all states who opt for
Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie.
energy source in difficult circumstances. I thank you, Mr. President.
C'est moi qui vous remercie, Monsieur l'Administrateur Général, pour votre intervention.
Thank you, Mr. General, for his
Distinguished
statement.
delegates, it is close to 1 p.m. Actually, it is 1 p.m. So it's time to adjourn. But before adjourning, there are a number of announcements I would like to make. First, the Committee of the Whole, for your information, the Committee of the Whole is scheduled to meet this afternoon at 3:30 p.m. in Ballroom C, in the C building, which is at the 4th floor. So it's for information of some and for action for others, for the members of the Committee of the Whole. Second, I wish to draw the attention of distinguished delegates to document GC 66/inf/9 entitled Statement of Financial Contribution to the Agency. Included in this document is a table indicating those member states which have lost their voting rights by virtue of the application of Article 14A of the statute. And with this, yes, and then I continue by saying that the first meeting of the General Committee dealing with item 5 of the provisional agenda, which is arrangement of the conference, will be held today at 2 o'clock in room CR6 in the 7th floor in the C building. The committee afterwards will also convene as a credentials committee for examining delegates' credentials. We will take up the report of the committee at the beginning of our next plenary session, which is, I remind you, at 3 p.m. And afterwards, we will resume, so after the committee's report, we resume with the statements under item 7 on the general debate. So I thank you. I wish you to have a nice lunch, and the meeting is adjourned until 3 p.m. sharp. Thank you very much.
Todos los organismos